Need a new chair. Hi, it's Hugh Foster on the bass here. Today I'm breaking down a few of my favourite bass lines by the one, the only, Bernard Edwards, or Nard for short. As one half of the writing duo behind Chic, his playing, tone and technique helped define the disco era from the mid-1970s, bleeding into the pop world of the 80s and beyond. In each video today, I'll be breaking down a few techniques and zooming in on the odd specific moment, but to break down every song would take forever. So, yeah, that's just where we are. I'll also be chatting to fellow Nard obsessive Nick Twister Owen at various points to contextualise each song and discuss various aspects of Bernard's playing. If you want the cheat sheets that I've made as a PDF, backing tracks and isolated bass parts that I've recorded, they'll be available as a download on my Patreon. Disclaimer, I'm sitting up for this part, it's very serious. This is a breakdown of my 5 personal favourite Bernard Edwards bass lines. If you're thinking best or most well known, then I have omitted some pretty obvious choices. Good times. That said, maybe I'll just have to do a sequel because this was so hard to narrow down to just 5. By the way, this is my 3rd video in the 5 bassline series. I've previously looked at Prince basslines and Louis Johnson basslines. If you haven't already, check them out. The link will be somewhere. It'll be there. Yeah.
What I find amazing about Everybody Dance, the technique thing.
Chucking.
The chucking technique, And then you've got to think about the dynamic of the up and down stroke. As we refer to the sort of double thumping thing, which has become, Victor Wooten's made that a big thing. Whereas the chucking thing is much more, it's unique.
Yeah, it's almost like playing with a pick, but because you're still hitting fleshy parts of your fingers.
Yeah, so it's got weight to it.
Should we do it? Should we do, the iconic Bernard Edwards technique bass line at least? Maybe not the one that's, most well known for Good Times. Obviously, I'm talking about Good Times. But technique-wise, the one that, shows off the chucking technique. And it's the only one today that I'm not playing on the Stingray. So I'm using my Heyman 4040, strung with flats. A note on the flats I'm using, by the way, they're the Ernie Ball Group 3 flat wounds, which, tone-wise sits somewhere between a round wound and your classic sort of flat wound, sort of thumpy sound. So they've got a little bit of brightness to them, but they've got that mid-range punch, which is, really cool, especially for this technique. From that discussion with Nick that you just saw, we were talking about the tone, and it sounds like a jazz bass with flats on. My jazz bass over there has rounds on, but this one sounds great with flats, and it's close enough with a, double split coil with both pickups on. So I'm using this one today. Also as well, it really fights back when you play it, and talking about how Bernard's action, you could fly a plane under it, as Nick said in our chat. For some bass parts, it's good to have a bass that kind of fights back a little bit. Let's just have a little look at the tracking technique itself first before we break down this iconic part. Imagine you're holding a pick. You've just got an imaginary pick here, and you're pinching very lightly your thumb and forefinger together. And for a downstroke, you're aiming to hit the string with the nail. You know, like the flat part of the nail. But for coming up, aim for like the tip of your finger, okay? And that way, you're going to end up with, yeah, like an interesting sound that's not quite the same as with a pick. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is one of those things, it's going to be a bit messy, but as long as the intensity is there, that makes all the difference. So you want to be kind of really going for it at times, but dynamically vary it a little bit, you know? And palm muting as well is quite important. So if you're new to that, just have your palm resting on the strings like so. And yeah, just really work on that bit before, you know, move on to any other bits. When I first started working on this technique, I just drilled that for ages, you know. And yeah, sometimes when you're working on technique, you just need to have that patience to just work on a section or a fragment for as, you know, long as you can to kind of really get it under your fingers. Let's just very quickly break it down into the component parts. We've got this first measure. For the first couple of times, that more or less stays the same. That bit is cool. It's completely chromatic. After this point, you just go down from a C to an A flat, 4th fret on the E string. And make sure to start with an up pick, then alternate pick for the rest of that. And you give yourself a rest by going to the fingers for the last couple of measures. And yeah, let's have a little look at those variations that happen, you know, 3rd and 4th time, at least in this intro. There's, you know, another bass feature later on in the song which goes off on one completely. But, you know, I just wanted to focus on this intro for today. Yeah, to set yourself up for that one, don't go high, stay low. All right, stay on the low C, and then it's just literally 2 of each note. D, low, high, E flat, same thing, back to D. Usually just some sort of ghosted thing just to kind of give yourself a chance to get to that A flat. The last variation, let's give that a quick go. The good thing about that one is, you know, rhythmically complicated, note choice wise, static. Just C.
Bernard had this thing, the ability to make maximum impact with minimum amount of notes. You know,
Preach.
If that is a thing, then he's the king of that thing.
I think that ties in with the deep hidden meaning thing that Nard and Niles were always going on about. This, you know, there's got to be that in their music in some way or another.
Yeah.
This song is, for me at least, it's like the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
So we've got I Want Your Love. This is another Chic cut from their second album, Say Chic, released in 1978. I need to say, as a song, this is probably one of my top 10 songs of all time, let alone bass lines, let alone Chic songs. It feels succinct, has an incredible ebb and flow that hits all the right points for me. Let's hear a bit of the chorus. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so on. Just a 4-bar phrase that goes round, and then E minor change there, and then F major 7, and then this just incredible. In my chat with Nick, we talked about doing so much with so little, and yeah, that really encapsulates that there. We're in the key of A minor, and it uses all the sort of main points that you're going to hit in the key of A minor. You've got A itself, goes to F major 7, which is quite a strong indication of being in A minor. Then we get to this D minor to E minor part with chromatic leading notes down to the D and then back up to the E. Just a hook in itself. And this is where we start to see the genius in Bernard Edwards playing. It's simple, but God, it's catchy. Talking of simple, let's have a look at the verse. One chord and just a few different approaches up to an A. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. And then to end, you've got that lovely hammer on, The bass is telling the band, right, we're going to the chorus now. Now, let's have a look at a few of those variations in the instrumental, where Bernard does his thing where he just takes an idea and varies it ever so slightly, different note choices, but keeping the rhythm the same, or, taking it higher up the fretboard. 3, 4. Let's have a look at that variation of, the fourth measure. Normally we go, right? But this time, simple, but up until this point, the bass line has been so consistently the same. Out of nowhere, you get this slight variation, but man, it's so impactful. Let's have a look at another one, which is the first instance in this video of one of Bernard's signature licks. Let me know if you spotted it. Did you spot it? It's the classic open string fretted note, octave of that fretted note, back down to the fretted note. I need to make a confession here. Up until embarrassingly recently, I thought it was a hammer-on. But no, I've listened closely, and he is always articulating every single note, which makes it even tougher. As if some of these bass lines weren't challenging enough already, he goes and does that. All it means is you've got to think about which fingers to use, and I'll do this in more detail in other bass lines. For example, We Are Family. It's full of that kind of thing. A tip for getting this consistently right. With your right hand, play the first note with your second finger. So you go like that. And then that leaves it free for the octave jump. It does take some practice though. When I first realised I'd been playing it wrong for decades, I was like, I'm going to have to rethink everything. When you have one of those moments, it really does shake you to your core. But I'm over it now, I think. We need to move on to the next tune, so let's go. I've got Thinking of You next.
Okay, yep.
First tune that I'm covering, which is a collaboration. So this is them working for Sister Sledge, right?
They were being really, really creative and coming out with lots of hits.
Yeah. So same year as Risque, the one which has got all the hits on it. What to say about this one? Do you like octaves? Because you're getting all of them. You're getting all the octaves. All right, let's get into that verse. 1, 2, 3. And so on. Deceivingly difficult at times. That in itself is a bit of a workout, especially the pickup into the verse. And on its own, slowed down, it sounds strange, but at full speed, it really works. The pattern is great. It's always slide onto a note, octave, and then a few more octaves, and then keep that going really until that B flat there. Let's have a look at that variation that happens at the halfway point. 3, 4. Right. Really cool. That Bernard lick again. Use all 4 fingers there. And yeah. Really just relax when you get to that one. Now for the end of the verse. And again. Hi, Hugh in the past forgot to mention something here, so I'm going to jump in. The main tip I'd give you is to be prepared to be as mobile with the right hand fingers as possible. You know, you're going to be jumping with either first or second finger, if you play it like I do. There, we're doing the jump with the first finger. And then here, ending up doing it with the second finger. I would practice, any combination of fingers. You're only using 2 of them, but be prepared to jump around a lot. Now we're into the chorus, which, if the verse was, moving a lot, complex, you get a little break in the chorus, but it's still tricky in a few ways. 1, 2, 3. And that's basically it. I didn't actually do that in the demo video, but yeah, if you want to take that part up a little bit higher, it's, again, what he's doing with these bass parts is just subtle variations as the song progresses, and it's masterful. We're in the key of B flat, but it starts on chord 4, E flat. and uses a lot of the 5th and 6th to get around, you know, just something a little more interesting but not too expansive. And just one more tricky thing, that kind of quick slide up and down, it's on an F initially, and you go up to a G and then back down again. Okay? And listening to stems of this, it's not always the cleanest thing. It's kind of more just a vibe, really. 1, 2, 3. And as long as you're in nice and cleanly for that E flat for beat 1 of the next bar, it's good. Yeah.
Again, you know, we're talking about bass parts which are maximum return for minimum notage.
This is like, take an idea, move it around the chord sequence, and then occasionally, just throw in something to vary it, but always have that little kind of like motif if you're being fancy and old school about it. If Beethoven was composing in the 1970s, he could have done something like that, you know, the master of the bass counter melody or whatever. I don't know,
He would have looked terrible in those clothes, though.
Yeah. Tell me, have you ever been to a wedding and not heard this song? Because I think statistically, that's unlikely. You might even play in wedding bands, like this guy here. It's one of those ones I never get bored of personally because it's just such a fascinating bass part. Where to start? Well, with that chorus, straight in from the top. 1, 2, ka 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 ka. And so on. Yeah, let's just have a look at that technique again, because this is, if we're talking about the Bernard lick, the ba-doo-ba-dum, make that the thing and move it around the chord sequence. Genius. So 3, 4, and 1, 2, do-do-do-do, and 1. It's got ever so slight variation, so, you know, it's got that chromatic approach to get you back to the start of the sequence. A little slide up to the D, and then just to make it a bit more fun, you know, at that halfway point, those pops, or I'm pinching these notes, and they're all hammer-ons. Okay, really outlining the sort of Mixolydian mode of this one. And if you don't know Mixolydian mode, it's this. Okay, like a major scale, but with a flat 7. With this one, take your time with the syncopated nature of it. You're always hitting the 4 and. 3, 4, and 1, 2. everything's hitting that, you know. Excuse the terrible singing. I was getting... Let's have a look at the verse of this one. Again, another just well-crafted bass line. I listen to these bass lines and go like, the man was a genius. All right, 3, 4. That's it. Using the octaves really well, but this... Okay, using a couple of hammer-ons and then open string to give yourself that moment to slide up to that E octave. Before we move on, let's just have a look at those hits in the outro chorus. You know the ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just the hits themselves. 3, 4. Just, you know, what must have been just a really fun little variation of, you know, that part that had been going all the way through the song, but just a bit more intense. Takes a bit of practice because he clearly pops, and then the rest I think are just played normal with the fingers, but with a bit of accent. So dig in a bit. And just to go back to those hits, 3, 4. Take care to end notes and have little bits of daylight between this one here, that one there. And then it's just going to sound even punchier.
My favourite Bernard part. It's like a heartbeat. You know, it's beautiful. I think this song is Bernard completely refined.
He's figured out his USP and then gone, okay, well, yeah, this is how I really go in hard on it. Yeah. Someone commented to me recently that Bernard Edwards personifies the Dorian mode, and other than Good Times, I think, yeah, this is one of those songs that does it best. So we're in E Dorian, which is like an E minor, but with a raised sixth. Okay, so that's E minor, C natural, and E Dorian, got a C sharp. It's a real strong power move to start a song with an A over C sharp when you're in the key of E Dorian. You know, you're really hammering that point home. Let's have a look at that chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at the last couple of bars, because that's where it starts to get really challenging. We've got another one of these boo-doo-be-doo, the signature Bernard lick. So yeah, make sure, if you want to make sure you get it right every time, start with the open note played by the second finger, and that gives it a chance to do the octave jump. And yeah, take some practice, but honestly, once you get it down, it's there. The last measure of the chorus. Okay, so some more tricky, weird stuff involving open strings and lots of 16th notes. That bit particularly, yeah, is a real challenge. But yeah, again, once you get it down, it's there. As for which open strings he's using, to me it sounds like it's an open E up to that C sharp, and then open A leading up to the last couple of notes in that phrase. He might vary it a little bit, but to me that's what sounds right. Let's look at how we change going into the verse. This is where we've got a bar of 2/4. 1, 2, 1 again. Let's have a little look at the verse part. Simpler chord sequence here. E minor, G over A, and then resolve into an A. A bit like you'd hear in, for example, Rock With You by Michael Jackson. A really solid soul R&B disco chord sequence. But the bass part, again, is just cool as hell. Rhythmic stuff that gets repeated, and yeah, some sort of like interplay, like just between usually two notes. The majority of the E minor sort of part, you're just playing E's and D's. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a sort of ghost note there, that bit there. I think it's an open A. Don't think it matters too much. I love that part, because if you really want a bass part to pop out at you, just a tiny moment where you jump up the octave can be really, really cool. Masterful work from Bernard. Similar, if not identical rhythm for the third and fourth measures, where we go into the A root note. And yeah, just that short thing on the last beat, getting us back to E again. Let's just look at one of the variations that he plays. You could call it a fill. When I first heard this tune, I heard that bit and I was just like, yeah, amazing. Here it is. 3, 4. And so on from that point. Let's just look at the last bar, because that's the bit you wanna hear. 3, 4. Gets really, really syncopated at this point. Just like jumping around with 16th note syncopation. That bit there shouldn't be too hard. It's the final bit where that can be quite tricky at full speed. And it could be, you know, maybe he played it like that. I just think for being able to play the whole thing and then get back to there easily, that's the best approach there for, you know, fret choices and so on. Well, that's it. Thanks to Nick Twister Owen for his contributions to this video. If you'd like to see a longer cut of our conversation, including some great trivia, anecdotes, and the odd hot take, it's available to watch on my Patreon. If you have any thoughts or need any clarifications, let me know in the comments below. Whether it's rational or not, this video has given me a little bit of anxiety about, you know, putting my thoughts, opinions out in the world about Bernard Edwards did this and he played it like this and he used these strings and he used this gear. Yeah, so if you have any thoughts about that, if I've made any glaring errors, do let me know, but, you know, be nice about it. That's all from me today. I've been Hugh Foster on the bass. Take care, and I'll see you next time.